And welcome, Hoosier fans, to another disappointing episode of Doing the Work, the first show on the Back Home Network dedicated to covering IU women's basketball. This is our 153rd episode, recording on the evening of Thursday, February 27th, 2025. I'm your host, Kathy Amos, joined by my co-host, Jeff Marlow. And today we will be discussing your Indiana Hoosiers' loss to Maryland, 74-60. That brings their record to 17-11 and 9-8 in the conference. But before we jump into the game, I'm going to start our show like we do every show, and that is with our Hoosier Proud banner moment. And I know we're usually only picking one, but I'm actually going to pick two. I'm going to pick one from in the game, and then one maybe just a little different. But the in-game one for me is during the third quarter when Yarden Garzone hit her second three of the night, and that moved her into second all-time of made three-point field goals to pass Tyra Buss. And she's only now one away from tying for first place overall. That would tie a record that has stood since, I think, around 1994, something like that. It's a very long time. And Yarden not only is going to surpass that, she's going to do it in 3 years. So that's my in-game banner moment. But my overall banner moment, Jeff, I'm going with is tonight was senior night. And we honored 3 seniors before the game and after the game here with some videos. And our 3 seniors we had were Sydney Parrish, who's played for us for 3 years. We had Caroline Striplin, who played with us 1 year. But most of all, what I'm going with for my Hoosier Proud banner moment was when Chloe Moore McNeil stepped on the floor for her last time in Assembly Hall. With this game, it was her 148th game overall played as an Indiana Hoosier. That ties her with Grace Berger for most games played all time at IU. And in those 148th games, she has won 116 games. She's made 4 NCAA appearances, including 2 Sweet 16s, an Elite 8, and a Big Ten regular season title, and multiple Big Ten honors. So I thought it was just important to make sure that even though we'll talk about Chloe tonight in terms of her gameplay, it might not have been her best overall game. She has really had a fantastic 5 years run for us tonight as an Indiana Hoosier. And I just wanted to make sure we took a few moments to honor that. And thank you to Chloe for everything she's done for the last 5 years. Although hopefully they agree with me, we're not done yet. But our banner moment is brought to you by Home Field Apparel, the presenting sponsor of the Back Home Network, which includes the Assembly Call, Crimson Cast, X's and Joe's, and the Dribble Drive. Home Field is constantly releasing new schools or updating their products for schools in their existing line, so you're bound to find anything for you or anyone else in your life that loves great collegiate gear. Not only do you get great quality apparel, but you are supporting an Indiana-based business that has its roots in the Kelley School of Business. So go to homefieldapparel.com and use our promo code HOME23 to get 15% off your entire first order. That promo code, again, is HOME23 for 15% off, and the website is homefieldapparel.com. Wear one for the team. All right. Well, Jeff, I don't think since the last podcast on Sunday, there's been any real notable news. So instead, I'll kick it over to you for your Marlow's musings. So what's on your mind tonight after that loss to Maryland?
Well, we knew it was going to be a tough game. Obviously, Maryland's ranked, Indiana's not. But again, just another one of those games, Kathy, where we felt like, at least on paper, that Indiana's home schedule this year was some of the better teams in the league. USC, UCLA, Maryland, Ohio State, and they went 1-3 against them. And I think that's kind of where you look at the season this year, and you're kind of like, if you could have found a way to go 3-1 or 4-0 at home, boy, how much different would this Big Ten and the whole season look, rather than feeling like, and I think we're safely in the tournament, barring some kind of flame out here the last 2-3 games. But you're on a 2-game losing streak now, and you got to try and right that. You got, again, kind of like the last time we were getting ready to play Purdue. Sunday becomes a get right game, and as you head into the Big Ten tournament and the NCAA tournament. So, but yeah, just another tough opponent at home. But it just was another night where the offense didn't do much, and we'll talk more about that when we get into the numbers.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, why don't we just go ahead and jump into it? We'll talk themes and kind of pivotal plays. I don't have a whole lot of pivotal plays, Jeff,
Nope.
in terms of specific ones. So let's just talk maybe the first quarter. I think in general, the first quarter and the second quarter, for me, the first quarter I thought was actually not too bad of a quarter. We ended up tied with Maryland after that. It was kind of a theme. We had 2 fouls on Sydney in less than 4 minutes. So fouling, I think, became a theme for the rest of the night, and just some runs too. So, we started out with a run of our own, suffocating Maryland, going up, holding them to 0 of 7 shooting. And we went up, I think, 6-0. We forced 3 turnovers in that time. And then Maryland went over and went on a 7-0 run. And, that was kind of the theme for me in the first quarter. So I thought our defense looked really good at the beginning, but I thought the rest of the game, it kind of fell off. But at least at the beginning of that first quarter, it looked fairly good to me. And that was kind of my theme, at least for the first quarter. Did you have anything specific that jumped out in that first quarter for you?
No, I'm going to jump to the second quarter because the game for me was at the end of the second quarter. The last 6 minutes of the second quarter, we were up 2 points, and then Maryland goes on a 14-2 run basically to end the half. And that's the game. It really does. It comes down to it. And again, another one of those games where there's a little bit of it's foul trouble. We had, I think it was 8 turnovers in the first half. And so we're turning it over, foul trouble, and we're not shooting the ball very well, because in the first half we were lucky. I think we were shooting 33% from the field, and that was 20% from beyond the arc. The last 5.5, 6 minutes of the second quarter is where the game was won and lost, because it basically played out even from there on. Except for Maryland did win the fourth quarter, but a lot of that came at the free throw line at the end of the game.
Yeah, absolutely. Those were the things I wrote down as well in that second quarter. We had a long scoring drought again. We weren't getting any stops. So you had like the worst of both ends of the court going on. Yep. And Maryland had that 14-0 run, like you mentioned, it put them up 18-30. We had been up 18-16 before that drought. In fact, we even tried going zone for a little bit, and it just didn't seem to help. And we ended up getting outscored 16-6 in that quarter. You just can't do that on your home court, especially against the number 4 team, at least right now in the Big Ten. Maryland's been playing really well, and they're ranked in the top 20 for a reason. And you can't just have your defense kind of they can't just have their defense leave them at that point or go scoring droughtless. Either one of those would have been a recipe for disaster. You had both of those going on most of that second quarter. So I agree with you, Jeff. I think the whole, if we're talking pivotal plays, it really wasn't pivotal plays. It was that whole pivotal, basically last, I think, 6 or 7 minutes of that second quarter. So yeah, we ended up going into halftime then down by 12. So, Jeff, what else do you have for the rest of the game? Did you have anything that kind of jumped out to you in the third and fourth quarter?
Any chance they had was when we got the flagrant 1 call on Sellers for grabbing Chloe on the move, and Shea goes we're down 8. Shea goes the line and hits 2 free throws, so we're down 6, and then we turned it over. And it's not that you're guaranteed any points out of that. But any chance they had, they needed a bucket at that point to draw within 4, possibly 3, and they turned it over. And then I think Maryland came down and got a bucket right after that. So any chance you had to really kind of keep the momentum building, get the crowd back into it even more, to me, that was pivotal. Again, you're not guaranteed any points, but they didn't even get a shot. You turned it over. And that's kind of been a theme of the year, just, turnovers at bad times. And tonight, that was definitely one.
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
What I had for the second half.
The other thing I kind of mentioned, I thought our defense, especially in that third and fourth quarter, just really got away from us, especially against Cheyenne Sellers. Cheyenne Sellers had 2 points at halftime, 23 in the second half. So she ended up with 25 points, and she was just killing us. And it just seemed like she was getting open at will against whoever she was guarding. We weren't fighting through screens. I noticed that a number of times where I thought Chloe she was getting screened, and either they weren't switching and calling them out, or Chloe just wasn't able to fight over them. And she was just getting open. It ended up with leading that team at 25 points. Like I said, most of those in that third quarter. Now I get a number of those were free throws down at the end, but only 8 of her points came from the free throw line. The bulk of them was her 7 of 15 shooting, including 3 of 7. I don't know how she was getting so wide open. I think she shoots like 44% from 3. Mm-hmm. That should have been something easily known in the scouting report. It just seems like for whatever reason, we had that defensive lapse in the second half. And I was kind of hopeful with that third quarter. Chloe got, finally, by the way, speaking of Chloe again, scoreless in the first half. Now, she was doing other things that, Chloe, more McNeil type of things in terms of assists. She ended up with 10 assists on the night, but she wasn't scoring. Her first points finally came in the third quarter when she got a drive to the bucket at 6:45, but she was also just not able to put the ball on the hoop. She ended up 2 of 9, including 0 of 4 from 3-point land. And outside of her assists, Chloe just really, I didn't think this was by far not her best game. And I hate saying that about her after she was my banner moment for her senior night, but I just really didn't think Chloe brought it for us tonight. In fact, I thought most of the time the seniors were kind of in and out, and Shay Chusky and Yarden Garzone were really carrying us through that game. But fouls too. I thought we were really foul prone. Now, we could talk about some of the questionable or lack of calling. It was inconsistent, which is not unusual. I mean, Maryland didn't even get their first defensive foul called on until sometime in the third quarter. There's no way they weren't being any less aggressive at us, but I thought there were also just some silly fouls committed on our part as well that just didn't help the flow of the game for us. What else?
We're not aggressive at times. We're not aggressive at times. So you're not going to draw fouls when you're not being aggressive.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. Then these long droughts, Sean Donahue in the chat was, does this seem to be a story this season? Yes, absolutely. We have seen this a number of times that we have just gone in these long droughts. The thing for this tonight compounded for it was just our defensive presence just really dropped off as well. Well, Jeff, any other pivotal plays or themes or anything you want to talk about, or should we tell it through the numbers?
I would tell through the numbers a little bit, but some of it also, Kathy, was we didn't really feel like we got our game. We didn't really get the ball up and down the floor. I felt like it was, and to a certain degree, I thought it would benefit to some, but it was too much of a stagnant half court game for too much of this game, and we needed to play a little bit more with pace and just couldn't quite get it there.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, good. Well, let's go ahead and jump into the numbers, Jeff. So since I'm hosting, why don't you go ahead first? Which number jumps out to you that you really want to make sure we talk through here tonight?
And this is, to me, part of the aggressiveness part. One offensive rebound for Indiana for the game. One. Yep. And they got out rebounded bad again. And this is something I talked about in the podcast the other day, but it's been a recurring theme in games where we have in our scouting reports and games we've been worried about. Got out rebounded 39-24, but one offensive rebound for the team, for the game. That's unacceptable.
Yeah. And the interesting thing with that, Jeff, is at the end of the first quarter, we were even with them on rebounds. So again, it was whatever happened at the end of that first quarter, whatever adjustment Brenda Freeze made with her team, and they really responded. But the remaining 3 quarters, absolutely, they just completely out rebounded us. In fact, that was one of the things I wrote down in the first quarter. I thought they looked really aggressive, at least on the defensive end in terms of rebounding. But for me, yes, I agree. That was definitely a number I wanted to jump out and point out. So the other one here for us that we like to look at is 17. That is assists. So we had 17 assists tonight. 10 of those were from Chloe. So as hard as I was on her in the last segment, she did contribute to the game in terms of finding the open player. And I, felt like a lot of those were going down to Striplin, who ended up with 10 points on 5-10 shooting. But again, 17 was fine. It was that we only had 23 made field goals, which was the problem. Shooting only 42% tonight. So it wasn't necessarily that we weren't finding the open person. It was just that we weren't knocking down the shots once we did find them. What else do you have?
Well, you kind of look at the specialty stats. Nothing jumps out there really. Normally we talk about kind of big advantage in one area or the other. I mean, there really wasn't. Maryland outscored us in the paint 30-28, -2. Okay, you can live with that. Indiana won the points off turnovers 12-10. Okay, +2. I mean, there's nothing really that stood out in kind of the specialty stats. It just came down to the lack of inability to make shots tonight for the Hoosiers.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, even, with the out rebounding too, that hurt us a little bit, but it only resulted in 7 second chance points for Maryland compared to our 2. So it was only a 5-point differential. But again, in a game that, I know we ended up losing by 14. I felt a little closer to that because we did foul, commit some fouls on purpose, at least on the way down. But, it was still about a 10-point game. So the second chance points were about 5 of them right there. But the other one a little bit was was bench points. Again, we just got nothing from our bench in terms of scoring. Absolutely nothing. We were 0 points from our bench on 0 of 5 shooting. Lexi ended up only playing seven minutes, and Sandvik 6, and Lily Meister only 7. The only bench player that got into double digits, it was 14, and 14 was Jules. Probably wouldn't have gotten there if Sydney wouldn't have gotten into foul trouble in that first half. So it was, again, a place in a game where our bench just didn't really contribute a whole lot for us in this game. Any thoughts on bench play, or maybe you want to jump to another number that jumps out to you?
Well, our bench is what it is. It just is not. It's been non-productive for most of the year, and part of that's they don't get a lot of minutes. I didn't realize. I'm not sure Lex played in the second half unless she got in right at the end of the game again. But I was a little surprised when I saw the stat sheet. She only had 7 minutes. That's a big surprise. I like Jules' game. I thought she wasn't killing us, but she just right now defensively is where again I'd like to see her get the 14, 15 minutes. As far as other stats, I'm going to throw in Caroline Striplin here because I'm not going to probably talk too much about Caroline in the game awards. But again, nice game, 10 points, 5 of 10 shooting, but only 3 rebounds. All right, and so again in a game like this, you need your primary post player to rebound a little bit, and she only had 3 rebounds. She also had 3 turnovers to go with 3 assists. So, and got in some foul trouble as well. She ended up with 2 fouls. In the first half, I believe, and also picked up a third one in the third quarter. So battled some foul trouble, but a nice night from Caroline, but we've obviously seen better from her as well. So it was kind of disappointing. And you hit it a little bit. You want your seniors to go out big on senior night if they can. And unfortunately, that didn't happen for them.
Yep, absolutely. Well, Jeff, I don't have any other numbers that really wanted to hit that we haven't talked about already, but did you have any last minute numbers, or you want to jump into some of the awards?
Let's hit the awards.
All right. Okay. So first we will start off with the game ball. So for those of you who are watching on YouTube, you can see the ticker at the bottom. But even if you're not, I'll read it off for you. So we have 2 people tied with 6 game balls, Sydney Parrish and Yarden Garzon on the year. Chloe Moore McNeil has 5, Shay Chesky has 4, and then Lily Meister and Caroline Striplin each have 3. So Jeff, I'm hosting. That means you get to go first. I think you can go maybe a couple different ways, but what maybe who's on your mind tonight for game ball?
Yeah, I think my first thought was Shay here because Shay ended up with 15 points, 5 of 10 shooting on a night when most people didn't shoot it very well. She actually missed a free throw though. And that hurts because she's shooting like 90%, 95% coming into the night.
She's missed 5 on the year now with that.
And one of them was tonight too. She had 2 rebounds. 2 rebounds, an assist, and a steal in 38 minutes. So I thought first thing is that's kind of eye testing it during the game, watching the game. I was thinking Shay, but then as I looked at the stat sheet, I guess kind of snuck up on me. Yarden. So I'm going to go with Yarden here just because she finished with 18 points, 6 of 12, 3 of 5 from beyond the arc, 3 of 3 at the line. She had 5 rebounds, which tied for a game high, and then she also had a block and a steal. And the one thing I'm leaning here for with her is she didn't have any turnover, or excuse me, she only had 1 turnover.
Yeah,
and that was that. I thought that played a little bit, but I'm going to go with Yarden here just because just a little better game than Shay, especially in the rebounding.
Yeah, Jeff, I'm actually going to make that unanimous. And I'm actually in the exact same boat that you are. I originally was thinking I was going to do Shay, and then somewhere around the third quarter or so, I think right around that time that Yarden passed Tyra Buss, I'm like, I don't know, Yarden seems to be kind of coming alive. And she did. She hit some nice shots after that, and she made all of her free throws. She had a block on the other end and a steal. So defensively, I thought she was fine there too. And, and again, we didn't talk a whole lot about the total turnovers for the team, where we had 12 turnovers. She only had 1 turnover, and I thought that was actually a pretty nice game for her. So I agree with you. I'm going to also give my game ball to Yarden Garzon. So that takes us then to our Grace Berger hardest worker. This will take me a minute here to read off all the names. We've had quite a few players over the season get a Grace Berger hardest worker, but Sydney Parrish leads the way with 6. Then we have Chloe Moore McNeil and Yarden Garzon with 5 each. Shay Chesky with 4. Caroline Striplin with 3. Lily Meister with 2, and then Jules and Hannah Sandbeck each with 1. So Jeff, again, why don't you go ahead and go first? Who do you have for your Graceberger hardest worker?
And again, I'm going to we talked about Shea already, so I'm going to also throw in Sydney's night here. Sydney kind of came alive late. She struggled for a big chunk of the game, partially because she was on the bench with foul trouble, but she finished with 13 points on 5 of 9 shooting, 3 of 6 beyond the arc. And she had 4 rebounds. I actually was going to consider Sid even more so in the game ball here, but the thing that really hurt Sid, she led the team with 5 turnovers tonight. And so it was hard to go there. It's hard to give her the hardest worker when you're turning it over 5 times and you had basically had half the turnovers. But I thought Sid, especially in the fourth quarter, showed a little life and knocked down some shots. But I'm going to go with Shea here. Shea for the hardest worker.
Yeah, I'll again make that unanimous, Jeff. I agree. I thought Shea did a really nice job. She has been turnover prone earlier in the year. Again, not that turnovers in total were a problem. The team had 8 at halftime and only had 4 in the second half. So that wasn't really the problem in the second half. But she did only have 2. She had a nice assist. I thought she did some nice things on the defensive side of the ball as well. But yeah, I agree. Sydney, she ended up with 13 points as well, like you mentioned. But, a good chunk of that came in the fourth quarter down at the end when she hit a couple of good timely threes. For Sydney, I thought she just also kind of took away, and not only just the turnovers, like you mentioned, 5 of our 12, but she also took herself out of the game pretty early on. And I think that impacted her defensively because she just couldn't play as aggressive when she had those 2 early fouls going on as well. So I agree. We'll go ahead and give Shea her 5th hardest worker on the year. By the way, Yarn Garzone leads with 7 in terms of the game ball. So we really are only watching one number the rest of this year for the most part because both Yarden and Chloe made it to the 1,000 point club. By the way, we missed this, I think, during the Michigan State game. Sydney Parrish also made it to the 1,000 point club. So we actually have 4 players now all made it to the 1,000 point club within their career, 2 of them with Indiana. But anyway, Yarden made 3 3-pointers tonight. That takes her to 205 on her career in terms of made 3-pointers. 206 would be first place. Again, I mentioned, I think that's a record that has stood since around 1994, 97, somewhere in the 90s, Jeff. It's been around for a long, long time. I might have that number here. I'll try to look at it here in a minute. So she needs 2 more to take over first place all by herself. The other number we'll probably start watching the next year is if she's going to make it to 300. I don't know if anybody, even on the men's side, has made it to 300 made 3-pointers, but she's already right now only 95 away from that. So we'll start looking at that number more in detail. Obviously, next year, she's definitely not going to make 300 this year unless there's something that ridiculous will happen. So anything else, Jeff, you want to talk about with this game? If not, we can talk about our upcoming game and move on. Okay. Well, let's do that. Our upcoming game and our last regular season game will be this Sunday. It will be on the road at Mackey Arena against Purdue. That game again is Sunday on March 2nd. The game will tip off at 2 Eastern or 1 Central and once again be on Peacock. In terms of history, IU trails 53-43. Although we are definitely making some hay on that. We are now won 12 in a row after our win earlier this year. As you know, probably by now, Purdue is coached by Katie Geralds. This is her 4th season at Purdue. I think she is now, they won earlier tonight. I think that took her record to exactly 500 at 60-60, and there's 1 NCAA appearance in those 4 years. Jeff, I'll talk player number, and then you can take us home with talking about what we can expect from Purdue as a team. Those 3 players really you can look at for Purdue. They only have 1 player who averages double digits and barely at that. It's Destiny Lombardi. She averages exactly 10 points per game. She also averages 3 rebounds per game, and she does that on 45% field goal shooting. Rashunda Jones is the other player to watch for. She is averaging 9 points per game and 3 rebounds. She leads their team as well in assists at 3.5 assists. Then lastly, one of their seniors is Reagan Bass. She is averaging 8.1 points per game, and she leads their team in rebounding at 5.2. All right, over to you, Jeff, on Purdue's team stats.
Yeah, again, this is I hate to say must win, but you really can't afford a loss to Purdue on Sunday.
Yep.
From a net ranking perspective, a quad type rank, a quad win. It's not a quad 1 win, quad 2 winning probably, but you can't afford a quad 3 or quad 4 loss here. It just can't happen. At this point in the season, Purdue right now 10-18, 3-14 in the league. I think by winning tonight, they're going to actually sneak into the Big Ten tournament more than likely because they were able to. I think they rise into 14th after tonight.
They did.
So they'll, or excuse me, to 15th after tonight. So they're probably, but you got to wonder if there's going to be a serious discussion up in Purdue land about, the coaching situation. Cause this is a team now that has not really sniffed the NCAA tournament the last 2 years. And it doesn't look like there's a huge influx of talent coming in for them unless they're going to go hit the portal big time. So it'll be interesting to see what happens up there. Again, I'm not saying she'll get let go or a firing will happen, but she is a legacy at Purdue. Don't get me wrong. I get that. But I'm sure there's got to be some rumblings going on that they thought there would be a much quicker turnaround and much more consistent turnaround than what they've seen. They're offensively, they scored just around 63 a game. That puts them 219th in the country. They're last in the league. They're the last ranked offense in the league. Their defense gives up just under 75. That's last in the league. And so you got the worst offense and the worst defense in the league. That's never a good combination from the standpoint. They're 342nd in defense in the country. They shoot it at 46.7, which is 17th in the Big Ten. Their effective field goal percentage is 47.1, which is 141st in the country. And then they don't shoot it very well from behind the arc, 31.9% on the arc, which is 15th in the Big Ten. So they've struggled to shoot, they've struggled to defend. So this is why you don't want to stub your toe here, even though it's a rivalry game. You can't go up there and expect to win. You got to go up there and play well on the last day of the season. They're minus 2.7 on rebounds, and they're minus 4.7 on turnover margin. So it is just, when you look at the stats just on paper, you think you're seeing a 10-18 team.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And, I agree with you, Jeff. To me, it is a must win. It's another rivalry game. I get it's on the road. And so they have to be ready for, that kind of environment. I would expect that it could be pretty raucous up there. Maybe not what we have seen in years past, but we have a nice winning streak going on here. And we just lost one tonight. Maryland hadn't beaten us in 5 years. I think I can't remember, we had won something like 5 years at home. And we had won last 5 in the row as well. So
last 4 in a row.
Yeah. So I know they haven't beaten us at home since 2020. I don't want to have another streak come to an end on Sunday. So I also think it would be really bad for us to fall below 500 in the league as well. I feel like, we're probably safely into the tournament at this point. We have some really good wins on our resume. We already know about the Ohio State, and we have those good wins down the Bahamas, but we don't need this on our record in terms of a blemish for anything to have the NCAA committee look at us and maybe give us a second eye look at that. And I don't want to put a lot of pressure on us to in the Big Ten tournament. With this loss tonight, we really need even with a win against Purdue, though, we would really need a lot breaking our way to get a bye now in the Big Ten tournament. So it is looking like we'll probably end up playing that first day in the Big Ten tournament at this point. So what you're really playing for at this point is to make sure you secure yourself in the NCAA, you beat your rival, and you go out of the regular season on a nice high note, and you beat your rival. So this is definitely a winnable game. Purdue's only won 3 conference games all year, and that was after they beat Penn State today. So I agree. I think this is a must win, but anything else you want to talk about with this one?
Well, I will say that, no, I'll say it for as we go around the league here.
Okay, well, let's do it. Let's hit around the Big Ten. I'll talk about some of the previous games that we've had since Sunday, and then if you want to hit the upcoming ones, and we can then talk about overall. So previous games of note that we wanted to talk about on Sunday, Washington actually went on the road and came into Lincoln and beat them 73-62. So that was an interesting turn of events that, again, impacts to the standings when you have about 700 kabillion teams all kind of smushed up in that middle pack. And then you have Washington steal one on the road like that. That was an interesting turn of events. And then on Wednesday, you had some really big games as well. You had number 22, Michigan State. They lost on the road to number 8, Ohio State, 82, goodness sakes, 78-89. Then Iowa went on the road and beat Michigan 79-66. And I'll say it again. I know they've been a bit streaky. They're not the Iowa we've seen the last 4 years, but I think Iowa can be a dangerous team in that Big Ten tournament, depending on how they get matched up. So they've had some close games as well that they've kind of lost here down the stretch, but they've been pretty close. So I'd keep an eye on them. And then again, Washington seems to be coming on here, I guess. So they won again on the road in their kind of Midwest tour, beating Minnesota 72-62. Oh my gosh, 72-62. I'm going to turn it over to you since I obviously am having trouble talking. So what about some of the upcoming games, Jeff, to keep an eye on?
Well, one thing I'll say, you do get a bye in the Big Ten tournament as long as you finish in the top 9. The top 4 get the double bye, and you're not going to get that. But they do need to win on Sunday to maintain that, because right now, if they win on Sunday, they're going to finish as the 9th seed. That's all. That's what it is, because they can't. The team, even if the other teams that are 10-7 lose and fall to 10-8, they all have the tiebreaker on us. We lost to all those teams that are already 10-7, but we hold the tiebreaker over Iowa and Nebraska because we beat both those two teams. So if we tied with them at 10-8, so we're pretty much, a win locks us into the 9th seed. We're not going to rise up a whole lot. We could fall with a loss, fall to 9-9. We could fall down to that playing on that first day. So it's important to get a win because you can play. You get a little bit of extra time. You get another day to rest. But I'm all for that. But you go around the Big Ten standings here. I guess the news we should have said at the beginning, Kathy, was the Big Ten office basically came out with and I talked a little bit about this in the last podcast. The Big Ten office kind of settled that. They basically gave Northwestern forfeits for not making the trip because of the wildfires out to LA when they were supposed to go play USC, UCLA. And so they gave 2 losses to Northwestern and a win each to USC and UCLA. So you now have everybody with the same number of games. I'm not sure I like that. I will say this. I'll get on the soapbox here a little bit. I would have liked to see the Big Ten office be a little more proactive and reschedule those games. I know it's hard because of the way they do the schedule. And you were trying to, make sure the team didn't have to make an extra trip. But I'm not sure I like the Big Ten because, in my opinion, they just basically said, well, Northwestern didn't make the trip. Well, they weren't supposed to make the trip. I mean, there was a reason teams, those games got canceled. To me, that's not Northwestern going, we're not going, So I'm not sure I like that answer from the Big Ten officer, but that's the way it is. So you have USC and UCLA tied. They play here tomorrow night. That'll be the conference championship game pretty much it will be the conference championship game tomorrow night. UCLA or Ohio State is 13-4.
Yep,
Saturday night. Yep, Saturday night. Sorry, I was looking at the wrong one. Saturday night. But then OSU at 13-4. They're pretty much locked into the 3 seeds. So you know who the top 3 seeds are. Maryland winning tonight bumps them up to 12-5, I believe. I want to make sure I check this. Yes, Maryland bumps up to 12-5. So that probably locks them into the 4. Now I know Illinois can maybe catch them, but so there's still a little bit of there. But so those, Illinois is at 11-6. Then you get to the jumbled mess. In 6th place, you got Michigan State, Michigan, Oregon, who are all 10-7. And again, all 3 of those teams beat Indiana. So that's why I said they had the bye, or they had the tiebreaker. Indiana, Iowa, Nebraska, all set currently at 9-8. Indiana's beat Iowa and Nebraska. So that's, so that's why they're going to be locked into the 9 seed, in my opinion, going on with that. So that's the conference, as hard as to believe, the season's over this weekend, and it's been a heck of a league season, but it's not been the season we were hoping for IU, but based off the first couple games, it could have been a lot worse.
Right. That's why I was saying, Jeff, I thought only the top 8 got a bye. The top 4 get a double bye, and then the next 4 I thought got a single bye. That's why I was saying I thought it was going to be pretty hard, and I was going off of what Austin was saying on the radio as well. So
I may be wrong, but I think there's 3 games on that first day, which is 6 teams, which would be 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15. So I think the top 9 we're going to get some form of bye. But I could be wrong too. But I was trying to look at the Big Ten. Big Ten
We'll
wins.
find out Sunday because there's so many different moving parts. You got Minnesota playing at Michigan State. You have, like you already said, USC and UCLA, Michigan and Illinois. You have Ohio State and Maryland playing each other. So, yeah, I think those top four seem pretty solid. Well, maybe depending on what goes on with Illinois as well, because if Illinois wins and Maryland loses, then, you have to go to tiebreakers on that as well. So your top three is really about it. So kind of what we expected, our top three on the year, and then you have a jumbled mess, which is really where we're at. All right, Jeff, let's kick it over to some final thoughts. What do you have on your mind that you want to wrap us up with tonight?
Again, another game where the offense kind of went away for long stretches.
Yeah.
And this team lives and dies with its shooting. It lives and dies with the three. And it died by it tonight for the most part, especially in the first half. And so we got to get back together. Got to get some have a couple good practices in. Go up to Purdue on Sunday and get a win, and just keep going from there as best we can.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, what worried me the most tonight, it just seemed like our defense really failed us on top of everything as well. We was seeing our team go through offensive droughts before. That wasn't surprising. It was allowing the 74 points at home. When we've only been allowing around 62, 63 points a year, or a game this year. So that was kind of what surprised me the most about this game. But I agree, we're coming down to the wire here. We're up to our last regular season game on Sunday. We have to go into Mackey Arena, I think, and get that win to finish 500 in the league. And then after that, we'll see what happens when we roll the ball out there in the Big Ten tournament, and then hopefully we get to see them play again in March in the NCAA. Feels like we should at this point, but if you lose that game on Sunday, you might put that a little bit in jeopardy. So just go and win, and then you don't have to worry about it. So that's kind of my final thought for today. All right. So with that, we will talk about what's coming up next. As we mentioned, we are playing Purdue on Sunday, March 2nd, and Jeff and I will be back for a live recap of that game. Again, just as a reminder, the game tips off at 2 o'clock Eastern, 1 o'clock Central, and it will be on Peacock. Also, if you want to see us do the show live and be part of our live chat, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/@BackHomeNetwork. You can also be part of our private community as well. Find out more at assemblycall.substack.com. And special thanks to John Ringer of Riggs Design for designing our logos. Also, a big thanks to Bob Thompson for the music you heard throughout the broadcast. But most of all, thank you all for listening to our episode of Doing the Work. And we will be back to talk IU hoops with you again on Sunday. But until then, keep your elbow in, your eyes on the rim, and let's go Hoosiers.
All right.
Good deal.
Good deal.
All right. Well, thanks, Jeff. Thanks everyone
Kathy.
for listening. Yes. Not a way we wanted to end at home, but not terribly surprised. Maryland's a really good team. So we're just not quite there what we're used to seeing anymore from our team, at least the last 4 years. So I have confidence in them that they'll win on Sunday. I feel pretty good about it, but you never know with a rival game on the road. So hopefully they take care of business.
Come out to a hot start.
Yes. Set the tone. So, all right, Jeff, have yourself a wonderful evening and a good weekend, and I'll talk to you Sunday afternoon.
Everybody see you, Kathy.
Good night, everyone.